now from Hollywood, California, the horror capital of the world, the Boulet Brothers, creatures of the night.
Welcome, dear Uglies, to a brand new episode of the Boulet Brothers Creatures of the Night. As always, we will be your ghost hosts for this episode, the Queens of Darkness, the Boulet Brothers Dragula
and Swanthula.
And tonight, we are going to be digging into the Boulet Brothers Dragula Season 2, Episodes 7 and 8. But before that, we're going to do a little YellowJackets recap because a lot of the fans at home wanted to hear it and they're watching along with us.
They sure did. It's so good. It only took 1 or 2 episodes for YellowJackets to sting me and have its little claws all over me. I can't stop thinking about the show.
You know, that reminds me, talking about stinging, of that bee that was chasing you today. Interesting.
And you too. Like, she just wouldn't give it up.
Well, then that giant one came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we dig into YellowJackets, I want to make a little movie recommendation because we don't have time to do a full review of it, but I strongly advise you to go see The Monkey if you have not seen it yet. I absolutely loved it. I laughed out loud the whole time, and I thought that the humor was just delivered with perfect accuracy.
I went in not knowing what to expect, and to be extremely frank, I was not excited to see it. I was just like, okay, it's the newest horror movie, I'm gonna go see it. Like, almost like obligatory, right? Mm-hmm. It was so good. Drac and I leaned in like 15 minutes into the movie, and I'm like, oh my god, do you like this? I love this. Oh, I love this too. Like, the dark humor was so there in full force. It was really fun, super violent. So fun, funny, violent, and scary. Like, what a great combo.
And
like,
gory.
Very gory.
In like an 80s kind of way.
It was goofy too. It
Yeah.
definitely doesn't take itself too seriously. And I have to say, Osgood Perkins killed it. Like, this was so good. And coming off the heels of Long Legs, which, let's be frank, it was hyped to hell. I'm not sure that it delivered. I was not that scared.
Well, I think it was a great film that was overhyped.
Me too.
You know, like,
yes.
if we had just seen it and we
Yeah.
didn't hear all that it was the scariest movie on earth
You'll ever see in your whole life. Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, so
Go see The Monkey.
Go see The Monkey for sure. I think Osgood Perkins is quickly becoming one of my favorite new directors. Ooh. All right, so let's talk about YellowJackets.
Yes, let's talk about YellowJackets. And let me just say this. I think I'm not alone when I said season 1 killed it. Everyone was hooked. Season 2, a little bit of a disappointment. And I think we're out of the gate now enough in season 3 to kind of say we're back. It feels...
So season 3, they killed it and then ate it.
Yes. Yeah. They ate at the campfire, no crumbs.
They killed it, they flopped, and now they killed it and ate.
Exactly. So here we are on episode 3, and let's just kind of touch on some of the highlights of the story, because wild stuff is happening in the children timeline as well as like the adult timeline. But maybe the wildest thing I've seen on this show, and there's been a lot of wild stuff, is this poison gas cave moment when we're hunting for the coach.
Right.
And I have to give it to you again, Drac. You called the guy in Companion that he was one of the AIs before I noticed it, which kind of shocked me because it's usually the other way around. And you called this gas hallucination in the cave.
You know, a lot of times people will say, if you all weren't who you are, what would you do? You know? Mm-hmm. I could see myself being a detective.
I thought you were going to say like a cave hermit.
That too. More of a farm hermit. Does that count?
Mushroom farm, cave only. No people, no sunlight.
Oh, no, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Hermit part's fine. Darkness, not so fun.
Sure. Yeah, you would be a great detective. And you know why? Because you pay attention to the details and your brain never stops working. And I would be the perfect detective's assistant because it's all about intuition for me.
And you have smart ass commentary. So
exactly.
It's like required.
Without me, you wouldn't be half as entertaining.
So this cave. Yeah. So we figured out that there was a gas in there. And it leads me to this question, because a lot of strange things happen throughout this episode. Mm-hmm. Is what they're experiencing a mass hallucination, Or is it supernatural? Or something else? What do you think?
I think the vibe is supernatural, and that's the ride I've signed up for. That's the roller coaster I've been on since season 1, and that's the one I'm staying on. I think this is a weird, almost callback to like primal energies and Mother Nature and sacrificing for the greater good, and we get some of that in this episode. What do you think?
I don't know. Like I think we haven't seen anything actually supernatural happen yet. So they leave it ambiguous where you're like, I don't know, maybe it could be like mental illness, mass hallucination. I suppose that happens when you have a group of people that experience like something together, like that the plane crash and living in, you know, all the stuff that they went through.
Yeah.
I think it's common for people to have mass hallucinations in that situation. But I don't know. I'm not sure.
I'm not feeling this mass hallucination explanation. And I'm thinking about, and I'm going to get these details wrong because it's been a couple of years, but I think it was toward the end of season 1, because I think this is right around Jackie's death. And now that we've invoked her name, one of your dreams come true in this dream sequence because Jackie makes a return to this episode. Jack was very excited.
I'm so glad. I was so pissed. I was like, you know what? They're not going to show any more like visits from Jackie's ghost. But there she was.
Well, there was something where the fire was outside and it was supposed to do something, and I forget, and all of them went to sleep, and like the wind starts whipping around and the trees like bend inward and the snow falls off the trees and like puts the fire out. Mm-hmm. And it definitely didn't feel like a mass hallucination or an act of nature. It felt supernatural.
That's true. Yeah.
There may be other examples too.
I saw some people online also speculate that maybe we're seeing this experience through one of the girls' minds, right? So this is her perception of what's happening, or even maybe her fantasy of what's happening, but that it's not in reality what's happening, because they call out the huts, and they're like, how could they have done all that, you know? And so, and the animals that they were raising and all that.
It does feel a little like Snow White-ish, right?
Right.
Like a fantasy.
And so that's a possibility too.
Yeah, you're right about it. I really hope we get the payoff though. Like I hate when we leave breadcrumbs in a story and then you don't get to the fucking witch's house. Like we better see it.
Now, what would you do if on the final season, the last episode, Jackie wakes up and they're all on a plane and she just dreamed the whole thing?
I would look at you and say, wow, did you write this? Because that's exactly the shit you used to pull when you would play like role-playing games and stuff.
Only once or twice.
Yes.
But it was a fun adventure.
A classic Drac move.
Okay, so what else happened in this episode?
Mistress Morbia. Okay, let's fast forward back to the adult timeline. And we have this exchange. And I didn't understand this when it was happening, but reading about it now, I'm like, oh, okay, now I get the implication. Shauna is home with her daughter Callie, and they have adult Lottie there with her, staying in her house. And Shauna sees this necklace that Lottie just gifted her daughter and freaks out. And like, how do you even have that? And rips it off her neck, kicks Lottie out of the house. That is Jackie's necklace.
Right.
Which I didn't know that. And
so
it must have been shocking for her to see that. Well, like a ghost.
What do you think she's doing? What do you think Lottie is up to?
I'll leave that up to the detective.
I think it's probably some sort of silly explanation. Like, what do they call it? The Force, or what? Not the Force. What do they call it? Like,
is it the Wild?
The Wild, so whatever it is. It's calling for some, you know, and she'll be like, we have to sacrifice your daughter because we didn't kill you, or say, who knows? You know, it's probably something like that.
It could be.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
I have to say my favorite moment of this episode was when Misty was in the car with Shauna as adults, and Shauna just reads her, and she's like, because Misty's like, why do you think I'm crazy? And she's like, because you carry around a hypodermic needle with lethal poison in it. You did this, you did that. It was hysterical. And then she was like, fine, and just gets out of the car.
Well, their brakes didn't work either. Like, something was a sabotage. Shauna thinks Misty did it, which is definitely par for the course for her character, but I don't know that she did. And they almost like killed people and ran off the road. It was pretty wild.
There's been a couple of clues that someone's like around Shauna, trailing her or something. I forget.
Earlier seasons, right?
No, this Yeah. But
Yeah.
it's there's something happening with her. I don't
Huh.
know what it is exactly.
And then my last note, and this whole episode is really like a psychodrama. We go to Van and Ty's adult timeline, and the waiter's dead. Van's cancer is in full remission, and Ty is like off in dreamland, dreaming about this guy with no pupils, and she dreams about that ice cream shop, and they go and they break in, and I feel like we're getting more insane. We're getting more in the realm of like between what is real and what is just happening in your head, and it's a little scary.
Right. Well, you remember was it last season or the first season? She was like eating dirt and all that.
Yeah, and looking outside the window and seeing that weird thing in the tree and all that.
So maybe it's a mess of things. Maybe it's psychological. It's also supernatural. It's part hallucination. We'll see. I don't need to know. Here's the thing. I watch this show like a total dummy because that's what that's what fans are. Like fans watch a show and they're just, why did that happen? Why did this happen? I like this. I don't like that. And as someone who makes a show and has to hear that stuff all the time, that's how I'm going to be a fan and watch this show. I'm going to say obvious things that everybody knows the answer to, but I don't because I don't want to put the effort in to think about it. I just like the show.
It's hilarious. I love it. I do want to give a little warning to the listeners for the rest of the episode, because this episode features all of the craziness of Wasteland Weekend. And for whatever reason, as destiny would have it, the recording quality is probably going to sound like we recorded it in the middle of the desert on Wasteland Weekend. So if you hear that, just let it paint the fantasy of there you are with us in the season 2 monsters out there in the desert getting ready for the Thunderdome, because it's such a great time.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will be digging in to the Boulet Brothers Dragula Season 2, Episodes 7 and 8. Stay tuned.
Welcome back, dear listeners. The Dark Triad has officially reformed. We are now joined by our hard-hearted henchman, Ian.
Oh my goodness, Swanthula. Hello. Drakmorda, you're looking fabulous tonight as well.
Oh.
Hi.
How's it going in the Lone Star State?
Well, I'll be real with you. Things over here in Texas are just, a horse-kicking good time. I'm loving it.
Have you run into any MAGA people yet?
Well, I was cruising in the Home Depot bathroom for a while, and so that, I met a couple.
All right, so let's talk about the Boulet Brothers Dragula Season 2, Episodes 7 and 8. For those of you that at home, you probably already watched this, but it's a 2-part episode and to be continued, so we wanted to do both episodes in one. And why did we do it that way? Do you all remember?
Yeah, I do, because I think we were forced to. Like we had to deliver 10 episodes and we didn't know it. And we were like, you know what? That trip to Wasteland was absolutely epic. I think we could have had 10 hours of the footage from there. So it was easy to carve up to make episodes 7 and 8. Now, I don't know if we carved it up the right way, because I felt like it was a little lopsided. And episode 7 was a lot of posturing and just sort of like mood building and world like exploring. And then 8 had like all the action.
Yeah.
I felt the same way. I remember, I don't know if we already talked about this on the show, but we went to a viewing party for episode 7. And this was like the first viewing party that the team had ever been to. And, we watch the episodes, we craft them, but we get to the viewing party and it just starts to dawn on me that there ain't a whole lot of action in episode 7. And everyone is like chomping at the bit, like, yeah, who's going to tear someone apart? What are the looks going to be? And I'm like, ooh, get ready for your documentary. Just get ready.
No, I know. I mean, Drac and I had a parallel experience too. And I was like kind of cringing, only because, it was a good episode, but it just didn't have the ups and the downs and the drama of a regular episode of Dragula.
I'll tell you what I will say about it is the cinematography was excellent. Like just seeing all of the Wasteland Weekend vehicles and people. I think it was shot really well. I think it was edited really well. It was really fun to just watch it.
It really brought me back too, like seeing
Hmm.
them there and exploring a place that Drac and I had been for a couple of years because we were going to Wasteland before we started filming Dragula just on our own. And then they hired us to host, a variety of different things that happen out there in the waste. And that's where the idea was born to bring the queens there and put them in the Thunderdome. So it
Yeah,
was
and back
definitely a trip down
then,
memory lane.
yeah, and back then, before we brought the show there, we were absolutely the only drag artists there, and we saw how cool it was. But we sort of love all that violence and vehicles and weapons and all that stuff. So I thought it'd be the
Really?
perfect. Go ahead.
I was saying, really? I would have never guessed that about you two.
So I was like, okay, let's bring the show out there. That'll be awesome. And whoever's going to be our next drag super monster should love this stuff. And then when we got the whole crew and the cast there, I was like, wait a minute. Because they were like, is that a gun? I was like, yes.
It was so awesome being there. I did have one snarky immediate memory, which was I'm watching all the footage happen and I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. God, I forgot how cool this looked. And I'm like, why don't I remember any of this? And then everyone arrived at the tent. And I remembered the reason why I didn't remember going around to any of the things happening was I was setting up the tent, which was blowing over every 5 seconds in the wind. I was like, oh, right. That was my fate that day.
I'm gonna forget his name. There was a PA at the time. Oh God, I don't remember his name.
Bowser.
But Bowser, it was Bowser, and we were all like, "Time to go to the dome! It's time to go to the dome!" But not you, Bowser. You stay here and guard the tent.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, to add a little bit of wasteland salt into the wound, do you remember when we came back, the battery generator had died and he was sitting there in the dark? I was like, oh my God, you could have turned my car on or something. He's like, I just didn't want to like go through your car. I'm like, okay, well, you sat in the dark for an hour. So, okay.
Now the set's dead. So what's better? We started episode 7 with our intro, which was our Immortan Joe inspired look and setting off nuclear bombs and drinking gasoline and all that, which I think was appropriate.
Oh my God, I love the gasoline cheers of it all.
I love after the ash falls, like from then on, I actually think it's really interesting looking. I think Nathan did a great job editing that.
Yeah, I like you said earlier, Drac. I think the cinematography is great here, and season 2 is such an interesting example of a crew that's developing in real time. You can just kind of see all of our skills upgrading, and it's just magical to watch. And one of my favorite things about the intro is because we were also kind of filming in real time too. We were able to put the nose on one of the chess pieces to represent Abora, and I was like, "Damn, that shit is funny."
I remember packing for that shoot, and I was Drac. I was like, Drac, should I put the nose on it? Should I put the nose on the night? Do I do it or do I not do it? No, I think I do it.
Absolutely, you should do it. Which his nose comes into play at the end of episode 8.
Sure does.
Oh yeah.
All right, so we come upstairs to the boudoir, and Swan has an eloquent delivery of, if you're waiting for Disasterina to come back, she's dead.
Yeah.
And we offer them coffee, which is whiskey.
Yes. Oh my God.
Such a different time, wasn't it?
Totally. It's just crazy to see the boudoir like this and just kind of just see what we were all thinking. We're like, well, they need coffee. It's the morning. Oh, well, let's give them whiskey. Okay, cool. Like, I just don't know that the same decisions would get made, but I regret nothing.
So we already talked a little bit about our history with Wasteland Weekend, but yeah, I think for the cast, they didn't know what it was when we first told them about it. But I think they enjoyed the description of it and they got really excited, and it was a field trip challenge, which I think they always like. But yeah, Wasteland Weekend, you saw the video of it, you know what it's about. It's really fun. If you haven't been before and you get the opportunity, you should definitely go. And then we sort of head out for the desert, and we get this, footage of them in the car talking. And what did you all think of that?
I felt like the car conversation is A strange one, honestly. Like it's weird to look back with fresh eyes on some of this content because to me, the one thing that really stands out is James will not let this Abora thing go. It feels like every time we kind of get in these quiet moments, James takes a stab at Abora. And I just remember at the time that this was what James wanted to talk about. It was kind of, I think, part of James's game that they were playing.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly why at this stage, because I think Abora is already kind of exactly where James wants them to be. But
Mm.
I have this quote. It's basically, well, even though you're even though you suck and you're petty and you're tacky and your makeup is horrible, I'm proud to call you family. I'm like,
So
holy
crazy.
shit. Like,
It's
yeah,
so
like a crazy thing to
crazy.
say.
Do you all think that James thought if Abora didn't go home, then he would, or no?
Um, I would say not necessarily. I think James was sort of like the alpha predator and sensed the weakest link and tried to like kill them off and eliminate them from the pack.
Hmm. I kind of
Interesting.
get the feeling that he had decided he thought that Victoria, Bitch, and him would be in the top 3.
Yeah.
It's interesting though, when we get to the end of episode 8, I don't think he says it, Abora believes that too, which
Yeah.
is a little bit of it's a strange thing that happens in season 2. And I think that the season 2 cast is incredible. And I feel like they also have a pretty good sense of self. It almost seems like people pretty easily accept their fates on the show. Like when it's time for someone to go, they're like, I think this might be the end of the road for me, which is just kind of an interesting thing considering how absolutely insane and scrappy they all are.
It's interesting with Abora because I feel like now in retrospect, like watching these episodes again and rewatching season 2, I feel like I have a much better understanding of Abora now and how I believe he could
Mhm.
succeed on the show because I think in some ways he's like the epitome of Dragula, right? Like he's monstrous and goblin like and really artistic and expressive and political and all these things that would make for a great winner of Dragula, definitely in the top 3. But then the other side of it is I think he chronically carries around that sort of experience that a lot of people who are maybe alternative or punk or whatever who come from smaller towns have, which is they're sort of used to being rejected or not winning or whatever. And I feel like you saw that lack of confidence in these episodes.
I think you're right. And I actually found it kind of crushing. I hate to see
Mhm.
that energy in anyone. And someone that we had spent so much time with and ultimately just accepting this fate that I feel like partially is her own fault, but then there's a good chunk of it that the peer pressure and like Ian said, this incessant sort of cracking at her skull until it splits open in the desert. That's what I
But
think
that's part of the
happens.
game, right? That's part of a competition reality show. That's going to happen. You have to be able to deal with it. But I don't know. I wonder if today could Abora harness that energy and use it to fuel themselves forward. It could be interesting.
It could be very interesting. And I wanted to back up a little bit when they were getting ready and we get a visitation from Vander. They were
Mm.
they were just so intrigued to get perspective from Vander and surprised to see Vander out in the desert. And it was so awesome to kind of have that surprise like waiting in the wings. But they had a really interesting conversation. And I loved the fact that like the progression of the makeup was very consistent. And sometimes this can be tricky in editing, but the conversation flowed very well. And every time we cut, their faces were like a little more complete as Vander was talking about sort of what Dragula means and what it's done for her career. And I just thought it was a cool moment leading up to this epic photo shoot.
I love when Vander visits the tent. I think it's so cool. And it, again, is a really, really a stark reminder of just how real this cast was and how real they were in the boudoir at the time. Because this conversation, it really honestly, it made me emotional. Like watching it again, I was like, wow, like to see everyone so young talking about Dragula and how much it means to them and just how much it means to the world and sort of like the dreams for the show to now be on the Boulet Brothers Creatures of the Night Post Mortem, season 2, episodes 7 and 8 of the Boulet Brothers Dragula. I'm like, wow, we fucking did it and are doing it. Like
Yeah.
it was awesome, honestly, to hear that.
I
Yeah.
agree with you. I took a lot of pride in it too. And there was something specific that Vander said where I was just kind of like, my heart just kind of like grew in my chest like the Grinch in that cartoon. When she was like, someone had posed a question like, well, what do you see for the future of the show? Like, what are
Yeah.
you most excited about? Because you in season one sort of laid the groundwork and now what the world gets to see. And Vander was singing the praises of the show, but she specifically paid us compliment because she said, this show is so subversive and it does so much for the weirdos and the queerdos and the outcasts and the geeks and the freaks. I would love to see it get huge, but I know the Boulets would never let it kind of get watered down and lose its essence. And that is so right. And that is so at the core of the way that we approach all of our projects. So I just loved to hear that.
Yes, and it really made me think about especially seasons 5 and 6, and part of that is because of a huge part is because of y'all and the challenges that were presented to the casts, but I also have to give some shine to the casts who I feel like continually feel like they have this like filth chip on their shoulder because some of the stuff we've been seeing recently, I'm like, I think in the past we may have been like, ooh, oh my God, okay, like how do we present this? How does this work? But seeing Neo's trash can child with the multiple vaginas and the spiders coming out of her and just some of the stuff that was on season 6, like the Frankenhooker challenge, I'm like, oh, right, this is fucking punk. Like, it's just awesome to see it grow.
So one of you all said that, you was talking about Vander, the masking. Vander, what do you want to see with the next winner? And I was wondering, do you think that they were just all like, okay, let's do the exact opposite? I'm like, why did you ask?
Oh my God.
Wow. I mean, tell me I'm wrong,
Well, listen, I think it's like any good master of something has to know the rules so they can break them, and then
really writing
break
it down
really
hard. And then okay. All right, I'm not going to do any of that.
Oh my God, it was so funny.
Holy shit.
She does give some more insight, though, and now we're moving into episode 8. I think Vander kind of hits it right in the center, right in the bullseye. After Dragula, you can handle anything that the world throws at you. And I still think that remains true.
I do too. Yeah. And that was the point of us making the show, which we've said before, making the show the way it is, because these are the places that we would do drag. These are the experiences that we had. Like I've said, we didn't spend our time, at drag shows at Hamburger Mary's and doing all that. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but a lot of people come up that way. We were at like fetish clubs. We were at Wasteland Weekend and all these kind of things. So it's very different. And so we thought we need to bring them to our sort of world and what we do.
Exactly.
I do want to throw a little bit of tea, which I know you all remember. Vander was so sick.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
Like deathbed sick. Like, what a trooper to be out there, but like shivering and flu-like. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of troopers, and not that it's the Suffering Olympics, but we haven't talked about your looks from this episode yet, which I feel like is a total travesty because this is also the first time that we get to see Boulets in armor, which is one of my favorite things that y'all do. It's so cool. I remember Swan made these headpieces and y'all worked on this armor over the course of getting ready for this episode. The dynamics are so fucking cool. Like
it is
you guys,
cool.
The skull makeup, like you guys, I'm sorry, sisters, you ate that. Like you guys fucking look amazing.
People love that book. And it was crazy because we literally, like they did, we always do this sort of thing. We got ready there just like they did. Like in the dirt, in the sand, I was putting my contacts in a truck mirror. Like it just, that's what it is there.
I remember that so vividly, Jackie. Like you were sitting in the driver's seat, I was in the passenger seat. We had the makeup mirrors propped up in the windshield, and we were painting, and the wind was whipping around. The tent was blowing across the desert, and it was about to die. Like it was a lot.
In fact, if I remember correctly, we have 2 different contacts in because one of our contacts, something happened to it, right?
Oh shit, I don't remember that. We definitely did have 2 different, but I don't remember that detail.
I think one of them like dropped in the sand or something happened to it.
Wow. I have one last little visual note, and this is kind of going off of something that I had said. I don't remember when I said it earlier in the season's recaps, but Israel is looking so fluffy in this episode, and I'm just like, Mama, you've never looked better. Woo! I have forgotten how my girl was looking out in the wastes.
Someone mentioned something. I forget. One of the listeners was like, "Oh, you guys are giving Israel a hard time." I was like, "No, we weren't. Israel is in no world in any point in his life overweight or anything like that. We pick at him the way he picks at himself." So I don't know. I just want to put that out there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. We love her. And also, she's so hot. Like, hello.
I want to back up to just right before we go any further and we get to "I Love My Car" and the whole like lip sync challenge out in the desert.
You mean the best song that's ever been used on Dragula?
Snella. Fun.
180, 190.
Holy shit.
Yes. Oh,
I did not get the hate for that song because I felt like it was very electro clash. Like I don't know. I just thought it was cool, but I mean, people hated that song.
Yeah, it was very much giving like secondhand electro that mom didn't have enough to go to the real record store, so she bought you a bootleg. It was that version.
Oh my God. I rewatching this episode, like, of course, I remember that Schnella is coming, but I just like, okay, it's like y'all are on stage and it's introducing the 4 horsewomen of the apocalypse. I was like, wait, what? Is this different audio? And I was like, nope, this is Schnella. I love my car.
All right, now listen, you guys took me away from what I was trying to say, because at the end of episode 7, and I didn't remember this, but we're doing these like next time on Dragula, and these like little sneak previews of the following episode, which I'm kind of living for. I might need to revisit that in upcoming seasons, but there's such a moment, Drac, you're so fucking cute because you're so devious, and you say something like, "Now listen, you can't really get through Dragula without throwing at least one punch, right?" And then you smile and everyone starts laughing. Like, what a moment. It's so cute.
Well, obviously, I knew what was coming.
Yes,
so
obviously.
I was excited about. Look, if someone had let me get in drag and clobber someone with a giant pugil stick, I would love to do that.
Yeah.
Clobber, yes.
Okay, so we get to the floor show. What did you all think of the floor show watching it again after all this time?
It's still fun. I think it captures the kind of like high octane experience that is Wasteland Weekend. And it just sort of really reflects Dragula's spirit, which is alternative and punk and badass and kind of hard. And just, it was wild. I thought it was kind of perfect.
I agree. I think this floor show is amazing, and the photo shoot element is so cool. Like, I love a photo shoot challenge. Maybe that's growing up on America's Next Top Model for me, but everyone looks awesome and just different shades of the waist. Like, I agree with, I think, Drac, you say it in the judgment or maybe the deliberation, like, James absolutely fits in Mad Max. And when I was watching the floor show, I was like, wow, you can actually see the thought of like, okay, well, why am I wearing fishnets? Okay, well, the fishnets literally hold together this armor piece with my glove, or just like a lot of thought went into it. And then, even though I agree that Abora's look is not my favorite personally, like, it's giving this game franchise called Borderlands, which is more like cell shaded, kind of wacky wasteland. And I think everyone looks cool. It's filmed super well. The photos are iconic. It pops off.
It really does. There's a detail too on Vicky's costume because it's filled with like inverted spikes and nails, and those are all brand new, and she like oxidized them to make them look rusted and like they've been out in the desert for a million years, and it was very effective.
Hell yeah.
Not oxidized rust. That reminds me of three, but we will get there.
Yes, I love my leg. I can't wait.
Damn.
So obviously, we all know what happens. We do judgment, and we decide that they're all going to battle each other in the Thunderdome, which is just so incredible because this thing between Bitch and Abora had been building the entire season. And, it started off hot, and it lined up perfectly that they would battle each other in this dome.
So brilliant. And clearly, I've said this before, but when I'm put on the spot, I forget. But let it be known now and immortalized on this episode. The Thunderdome challenge is my absolute favorite extermination challenge from any episode, from the entire series. I think it is the best.
Hell yeah. That is so correct and iconic. And I hope that other people feel that way. And I think a large portion of people do because it's so cool looking. But I will say, for everyone at home, we win. Like, we just fucking win because being there and doing this, and this whole episode actually makes me feel this way where, and I'm gonna mirror a lot of what the girls, as we called them that year, like what they said. Like, Dragula really is and was pushing boundaries, changing people's minds, changing people's opinions, because us being there, this like cabal of little queerdos and weirdos, I feel like people's wigs were blown back and they didn't know how to take all of us being there. And then the Thunderdome happens and it was fucking electric. Like, we were the Wasteland. I was like, oh my God, this is the coolest moment of my entire life. Like, and I hope that other people can feel that from the episode because I am obsessed with it.
Well, you can see too, we just walk in and grab the mics and, become these like MCs of the gladiator arena. And we've done it before. So it was just perfect. But one of the things I remember about that now watching it again is that was all live. Like a lot of stuff we do now, we'll have to do a couple takes or this or that or whatever. That was like, grab the mic. The audio is exactly the audio you get. So it all better go the right way because we couldn't shoot it again twice.
Yeah. And you know what? We gave them a lot of fight time. Do you guys agree? Like, the fights are like extensive. I was like, wow. I mean, I think Vicky and James beat each other for like 2 straight minutes. Like, it was just it was a lot.
They were vicious. And then Laura's nose gets knocked off, which it's like a comic book or something. It's like her nose got knocked off, and then maybe he lost his powers after that.
Yeah, and there's another shot where the bananas get blown right off the costume. Did you catch that? I saw it again today. Yeah,
and also Victoria's tooth went flying off the screen as well because
literally.
Yeah, I don't know that everybody knows. Did we end up talking about that on the show? Because she did crack her tooth in the Thunderdome fight.
In the post-fight recaps, Victoria mentions that she chipped a tooth, but then later she says 2 chipped teeth. And I'm like, oh my God, girl. Like, what else were you doing in the Wasteland?
She's like, I better win this season now. I got to pay for my teeth.
Well.
The crowd's reaction to this was really great in the moment, too. Do you all remember how insane the crowd was going during these fights?
Oh, my God. I remember when you and I got in that arena, and it's kind of hard to tell, but I think if you just watch the episode again, there are not only like a posse of people on the ground kind of pulling the competitors apart and giving them the sticks and kind of organizing the fight, but there are people crawling all over that dome and kind of watching you from like the full 360. Like, it was so awesome. It was so good.
It was. I have to say, I think these 2 episodes is such an epic conclusion to season 2. And just watching it again, I love these episodes.
Yeah, I agree.
Hell yeah. Absolutely.
And then we get another one of those next time on Dragula, and we see some sneak previews from the reunion, which is its own beast that we will be getting to. But Kendra gives us, now put some titties on, bitch.
Yes! Oh my fucking God, yes! Wow, put some titties on, bitch.
And Ian, what's Victoria's quote?
Oh, honestly, I wish I could deliver it the same way she does. But when you're over there, look at, what is it? Oh my God. You're over there with your...
When you want to go ahead. You want to talk about cheap outfits.
Yeah.
You're over there. You're over there looking like you got yours in the Walgreens section for Halloween.
Oh my God. And it's like, Victoria, if you're listening, I love you. I know it can get intense if you're trying to get your words out. And she tried so hard. And it's like, the delivery's like perfect, but it's you got yours at the Walgreens section for Halloween. I'm like, we're going to take that a second time, sister, and I'll let you go again.
We're going to get to it. But do you all remember Monique?
Yep. Of course.
Girl, I knew who you were going to say before you even fucking said her name. Absolutely.
Ooh.
We can talk about it in the next episode, but didn't we almost remove her like 10 times during the filming of that?
Yeah.
We almost had to. It was that was a long day. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a good time.
That's who I snapped at, right? Because I saw it in the upcoming Yeah.
And you're interrupting me again or something like that. It was like, oh shit. And then I had to point my Frankenfurter turkey carver at her and be like, Monique.
God. Oh, speaking of this little next time on, I gotta say, I love Abora. Like Abora, is such a strange character because I think that he says stuff sometimes that I think in his mind it's like it is like a scripted Tim Burton Batman movie because it's like, well, where I'm from, lying is an easy solution to solve all of your problems.
I know.
It's so good. Totally. I'm like, okay, yes, amazing, hilarious thing to say. IRL, I don't think you should be saying that. That's a little bit weird.
Well, I'm saying that's what we talked about before from episode 1 of season 2 was when they came in, they had all this sort of toxic energy from the drag scene that they grew up in. And I think that's what he's referring to.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we will be answering all of your listener questions. All right, and we are back. Ian, would you do the honors?
Ooh, I would be honored. Wes from New Zealand writes, I loved the Dead by Daylight episode as I played the game, and I was excited to hear that the collection with the winning outfit from the episode is coming to the game. Is this still planned for release, and is it coming soon?
It is definitely still planned for release. It just takes a long time to do all the visuals and mechanics and everything, but it should be coming out in the summer, I believe. And I've seen the graphics and they look divine. And also, we're doing voice recordings for it so that you can hear us talking and laughing and stuff while you're playing our characters.
Wait, whoa, hold on. Put me back in the waiting lobby. This is my first time hearing that. Are you fucking serious?
Yeah.
Of course, they messaged. They were like, "Would you guys like to do the voices?" And we were like, "What the hell do you think?" Definitely.
Oh my god, that's so cool. Of course, I am excited to see y'all in game, but the fact that you're going to do voiceover work for the game is, mama, I'm buying a ticket for the meet and greet. I'm so stoked for that.
We're going to need 100 different grunts because when you get hit with stuff, yeah, exactly.
Wow.
I guess Swan can be like, ooh.
I know. Yes! Ooh. Holy shit.
Oh, wow.
Lance from Albuquerque writes, it seems at this point that Lady Gaga is begging to be on the show, giving visuals and songs that could easily exist in the Boulet verse with Disease and Abracadabra. Will we ever see Mother Monster on the show?
I would never say never, but I personally don't see it. What do you think, Swan?
Well, if her people reach out and they beg, then I would say yes.
Didn't she go on Drag Race already, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so there you go.
She did.
Cole from Halifax asks, I'm diving into how demonology has been used to villainize marginalized communities, particularly in connection to queer history. While demons were historically used as a scare tactic against queerness, today they're often reclaimed as symbols of power in queer art and drag. What do you think makes the monstrous so appealing in queer culture?
I think queer people see a little bit of themselves in things like monsters and villains and outcasts. There's a little piece of a lot of us that have experienced that kind of trauma and just being singled out, and reclaiming that by putting the word monster over your name is just sort of a way to kind of answer and kind of give the middle finger back to those experiences.
I think too, the trope of, the monsters usually start out, they're abused or ignored or something horrible happens to them. And then they come back and chase everybody down in the town and kill them and terrify them. I think that's empowering. And when you are someone from a marginalized community and you see that on screen, you're like, oh yes, you want the monster to win because you identify with the monster. That's it.
Well said. Kayla from Brooklyn writes, did the girls write their own scenes for the Scream Queens challenge, or were they given scripts?
I do not remember. I think they wrote their own, didn't they, Ian?
I think that it was a little bit of a hybrid. I think that there were certain lines. Well, actually, I know for a fact there were certain lines like "He's murdering my pussy," Disasterina, that were given to them as a little bit of an added sort of like, here's, can you deliver lines? Can you deliver a script? Like I remember Victoria's there was a lot of scripting for that one because there was so much going on. But the competitors also had the opportunity to kind of do their own. Like Bitch, for example, I'm pretty sure Bitch wrote all of hers. But I think it was a little bit of a hybrid.
Yeah, that's how I remember it too. And the same thing with James's like "Namaste, motherfucker." Like I love that moment. And James brought a lot of that to the scripting.
Sabrina from Belfast writes, as an OG Boulet Brothers Dragula fan, I see you used to do a thing before the pageant started where judges would use a crucifix and hold it either the correct way or upside down to vote whether or not they wanted the contestant to progress to the next round. I was wondering if you would ever incorporate that or something like it into the show.
I would love to do that, but the truth is, they work on these outfits all week and they put so much into them. And I just think it's rude to just give them a thumbs down. Like it just feels disrespectful to not give them some feedback. I mean, it was fun in a club environment because everyone's drunk and it's wild and the energy was chaotic. But I don't think it works. It works in a TV format.
I'm going to expand on that. The reason that it worked really well in the club is because it was a club. Like everyone is kind of halfway to wasted and they can't hear like a big speech about your outfit and how it gets critiqued. It's like up or down. And that's about as much as someone can handle when they were at like the punk rock Dragula party. But I do love this kind of brutality, this Roman gladiator vibe where it's like they live or they die. Like, feed them to the lions or let them like continue to fight. And maybe we could incorporate that in some way where, after judgment, we can do like the upside down cross or not. And I think that would be really cool.
Jason writes, I remember you mentioning Michelle Visage texting you to congratulate your nominations. Would you ever have her for a guest judge? Would that even be allowed?
It would be allowed for us. I don't know if her production company would want her to do that, but I think I would have her on. I love her. Her energy's so great. She has good feedback. The only thing is, I think she has a lot of influence over drag culture already. So it may seem a little, weird to let her put her stamp on this brand of drag. It could potentially bother people. I'm not sure. But I would love to have her because she's really nice and we get along great with her.
Yeah, I agree. I think she would be a great judge, and I would definitely not be against it.
One thing I will say is we, at the soundstage that we shoot at, Drag Race decided to start shooting there after we did. So anyways, they were on a soundstage. Well, so they were on a soundstage like 2 places over from us. And I was thinking at the moment, I was like, I'm going to text her and just have her walk through the lab and be like, oh my God, wrong show, and walk off.
Yes. Oh my God, that'd be amazing.
They're not going to let her do that, but I should have asked her.
Holy hell. James Copeland writes, James from Belfast, Northern Ireland here. Ooh, our second Belfast. I wondered whether you guys hang out with the competitors outside the show as friends, and if so, who are your best Judies?
So the answer to that is no. And it's not because we don't like them or we don't want to spend time with them, but there's a weird power dynamic, I think, in situations like these that's unavoidable, that they know us as directors and producers of the show, and we've been around forever, and there's a little bit of intimidation there too. But I also think everything that we do gets read into. So if I just look sideways at someone, they're like, oh my God, Drac hates you. They gave you a dirty look. And I was like, I can't be around that. I don't want to be that all the time. What about you, Swan?
Well, we don't have close relationships, but I don't mind keeping connections to some of them, just because there is a separation that sort of needs to happen, especially because we do things like plan tours or all-star seasons, and just the show is still very vibrant and happening. So I think reflecting a little bit of what you said, everything that comes out of my mouth, I feel is like a little bit over scrutinized, except for a few of them. And there are a few competitors from the past seasons that they have my number and will text and just have like little, very, very light friendships, or they'll send us some congratulations on the announcement of a new season. And I like that because in many ways they are our extended family too. So
yeah, and I'll say, even though we don't hang out with them all the time, if any of them ever called me or needed anything from me, whether we've had a great history, a bad history, or whatever, I would take any of their calls and hear them out and talk to them. I do care about all of them.
should I list off who we text with?
No. I don't think anybody has my number. I'm pretty sure. So,
well, yeah,
actually, you might be like one person, maybe two that do.
Tyler asks, I think you may have missed what Heart Eyes was really going for. In my opinion, it was a spoof on the classic Hallmark romance films, from our two protagonists bumping into each other at the coffee shop, their meet cute, to the lead actress working in an ad agency, falling for each other within one day, and having very conflicting opinions on love. Throw buckets of blood into the mix, and you have the world's first Hallmark horror movie. This movie definitely isn't for everyone, but I believe it knew exactly what it was, and it leaned heavily into the cheeseball aspect.
Well, we just have a disagreement and opposing opinions. I do think they kind of maybe achieved this classic Hallmark moment, but I only realized that after I read this comment, because I actually disagree with that they knew exactly what they were doing. I felt like they were trying to be too many different things. And when you boil it all down and reduce it to its essence, a viewer should not have to think that hard to understand the type of movie that they're watching.
Yeah, and I think too, in watching The Monkey, which we just saw recently, the delivery is everything. I don't care how crafty your script is. If it goes over people's head and it's not delivered correctly, dark humor does not land. In The Monkey, it 100% lands. In Hard Eyes,
oh my God.
100% does not land. That's just our opinion, though.
Sorry, really fast. I was like sitting here being like, oh my God, please don't spoil The Monkey. Please don't spoil The Monkey, because I am dying to see The Monkey. And when you were leading up to the ramp up of like the delivery, I'm like, oh my God, she's going to say it's bad. She's going to say it's bad. But to know that you think the delivery works is a slay. Cause I'm literally reading the short story right now for it. Cause I wanted to. Yeah. It's so good. I'm like, wow, I can't wait to see how this translates or how it doesn't translate. But yeah, okay. Sorry, not to take us away from Hard Eyes.
Don't apologize. We're going into Monkey a little bit more, and I won't spoil. We just saw it last night, and about 15 minutes, like right at the beginning, 15 minutes into the movie, Drac and I kind of lean into each other, and he's like, "I really like this movie." I'm like, "Oh my God, I love it too." So it's very fun. Yeah.
I love it.
Yay!
I love it. They really, really nailed the darkest dark humor and did it correctly. And I was just laughing constantly.
Oh my God. That is so exciting to hear. Because from the first trailer, I was like, I feel like I'm missing something. Like, what is this? Because I think, we had just come off of Long Legs and the insane ad campaign they ran for that. And I was just like, I don't know that I get this. And then the more like stuff that started to come out, I was like, oh, wait a minute. This is a comedy. And I am like chomping at the bit now that I'm like reading the book. I'm like, holy shit, I cannot wait.
Yeah. Well, I hope give us a call and let us know what you think of it after you watch it.
You can take a little nerd away from her workbooks, but you can't take the workbook out of the nerd.
You know what? Exactly. I'm like, what would be a fun thing to do before going to relax at a movie? I'm going to read a book. Like, I'm just going to do more work.
Lovely. Perfect.
All right, everybody. Well, that's all the time we have for this episode of the Boulet Brothers Creatures of the Night. Make sure you join us back here next episode, where we're going to be discussing the reunion and the grand finale of the Boulet Brothers Dragula Season 2, and you do not want to miss it.
The Boulet Brothers Creatures of the Night is hosted and produced by Dracmorda and Swantula Boulet, along with co-host Ian DeVogler, with music by Neuron Spectre.